Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. I've heard that. Thank you. Hey, I have a quick announcement, and then we're going to jump right in today. So, only announcement other than that which is running behind me. Someone has lost a Samsung Infuse white and teal case with flowers on it. It was last seen this morning in JP2. So if anyone knows where that is or has it and it's not yours, bring it to me and I'll take care of it. Thank you. Oh, here's an announcement from the lovely ladies of SNA. Come on up. Yeah, SNA. Okay, no one's clapping.
Hi, guys. How are you guys doing? Well, we're from Student Nursing Association. I'm the president. My name's Jessica.
And I'm Kendra. Many of you guys know me already, and I'm the sophomore rep for SNA.
Yep. And we're an organization for the nursing students, so any of you guys that are going to be in the nursing program, you guys will want to find us on Facebook. We have our own Facebook page, and it gives out different information about upcoming events that we have. We have a lot of things going on right now in the university, so it'd be a good place to use as a resource. Things that we have coming up. We have a mentor program that we're just getting ready to start where we can help you guys with classes. If any of you guys are taking anatomy and physiology, micro, any other classes that you guys have problems with, we go ahead and we sit down, we talk one-on-one on study tips and any other kind of questions that you guys might have. Right now we have one next week from 7 to 8. So if you guys are interested in that, we also do fun things like the 13th, we're doing a breast cancer walk where we all get crazy with pink and we walk throughout the streets in Fort Wayne for the Making Strides Breast Cancer. We're meeting at 8:30, wearing all of our fun pink outfits, and we're going to be meeting at the fountain. If any of you guys are interested in any of our activities, you guys can email me or her, or you can find our Facebook page. It's kind of the only way that we can make contact. I do have open hours too, if you guys are interested, and we have a SNA office in Dormer. If you guys have any other questions.
So you guys know that it's really important to build up your resume. How many of you guys are nursing students? Raise your hand high. Woo, woo. Okay, so all you guys should be getting involved now as your freshmen because your schedules aren't that difficult and they're going to just keep getting harder. So it's important to build up your resume. That way your resume is a square rather than an upside down triangle where your freshman year you have nothing and then your senior year you try to do as much things as possible. So you guys should all be getting involved. We're here to help you. We want to make sure you guys continue in the nursing program, be successful. We want to make new friends. And SNA has really become my second family. I've become very, very close with Jess. So do you guys have any questions? No? You guys see me on campus. You can see Jess. Yeah. Go.
Okay, so I didn't realize there are a lot of upcoming nursing students that are in here. And as a nursing student, you guys already pay $30 each semester to be a part of the Student Nursing Association. So you guys are already going to pay for that once you're in the program. So that's another reason and incentive why you should be involved is because you're already paying for it. Like we said, if there's any other questions that you guys might have, just come find us, and we'll be trying to get announcements to your guys' class so that you guys can be involved with what we're doing. You guys have a good day.
I'm on now. Okay. You are getting in your hands, I believe, a little blue something. It's not in your hands yet. It will be. Here it comes. Okay. This is to remind you about something that's happening on Monday. Remember, a few weeks ago we were talking about 10-8-5. Well, today is what? The 5th, right? When is the 8th? Monday. Okay. Monday at 5 o'clock, 5-5. Right across the street at Brookside is the event that you will want to be attending. At 5 o'clock, we have food, so don't worry about being hungry. You will not be hungry. You will be well nourished. And we're going to have some events to familiarize you with the School of Professional Studies, that is psychology, social work, and education. I see some familiar faces here already in those programs. And may I ask you, there's somebody with a, on that blue bookmark, big pamphlet thing, who has a dot on it. Who is the dot holder? Holder of dot. Come up. Hey, look at this. What color is the dot? Pink. And what do you have written on you? This looks like it's fixed, doesn't it? It's not. Here, you are the winner of a comfort food card to Panera's. Okay, good. There will be other goodies available on Monday, so we hope to see you there. What time? 5 o'clock. Where? Brookside. Thanks a lot.
Okay, we are going to talk a little bit about some history of the university. We're going to have a little time to talk with the sisters, but we've also incorporated a mini tour of Brookside today. So what we're going to do is this section here and this section here needs to file out right now, and you're going to be directed to Brookside. While they're doing that, I would like to welcome Sister Mary. She is one of the sisters who's been here on campus for quite some time. And she is going to talk a little bit about the history. And so we will go from there.
Good afternoon. They invited me because I'm as old as dirt. I've been here longer than anybody else. So I've lived through a lot of the history. Not all of it, because we started back in 1890, so I'm not quite that old. And if I can get this to work correctly, okay, yeah. Let's go back. Well, we won't go back. We started in 1890, so this is a history from 1890 to 2012. Now, Sister Anita is going to do a little bit about the history of the community in a few minutes, and I didn't realize that, but it's really necessary to understand our beginnings a little bit so that you can understand why the university started and how it started, and I don't want to fall off the stage. Okay, this is a picture of Mother Maria Theresia Bonsall, the founder of our group. There's a statue of her over in Bonsall Hall. You call it Bonsall. The Germans say Bonsall, so I go half and half between the two. She founded our community in 1863. That's a long time ago. We were in the midst of a civil war over here. And it was founded in a place called Oppe, Germany, which is in the Sauerland area, if you know anything about the geography. It's a very gorgeous place. I had a chance to visit for a few days. And so we'll be celebrating the 150th anniversary of our congregation next year. It's going to be a lot of hoopla. Some of it will be here. We'll have visitors here. So very simple introduction to our beginnings. Now what happened, we came to the United States. Why did we come to the United States? We started in Germany, and there was a lot of places for us to work and do our ministry over there. But about 1871, something happened. This is like 8 years after the community started. It was called the Kulturkampf. Here's a cartoon from that particular period. This is Otto von Bismarck, the Chancellor of Prussia, and this is the Pope. And they're having this little chess game. They're fighting over powers. What the Kulturkampf was that Bismarck said that the church could no longer do anything much as far as new beginnings. Religious communities could not accept new ministries. They could not accept new candidates. They'd only been in existence 8 years. They could do nothing but just kind of sit there with a few people that were involved at that time. And that put a kind of a stress on the new congregation. That happened in 1871. So the Sisters of St. Francis of Perpetual Adoration came to the United States in 1875, 4 years after the Kulturkampf. Now what happened was Bishop Dwenger, you recognize that name, all right? Bishop Dwenger was a former bishop, an early bishop. He didn't start any high schools here. The high school is named after him. He was traveling around Germany in 1875, and he found this community that needed some place to go. So he said, come on over to my diocese. And so they came to the United States. 6 sisters came. In the middle of the night, they got off a train in Lafayette, Indiana, with no money left. Because even today, when people from Europe come to this country, they have no sense of how big we are. You know, Germany's this big, United States this big. So they didn't bring enough money to really get started. They got off the train with coins in their pocket in the middle of the night with nobody to meet them. And someone finally did take them in, and the next day or so they began doing nursing care. And they founded a small hospital in a house in Lafayette. Then they began teaching 2 years later at St. Boniface School in Lafayette, Indiana. If any of you are from that area, you're familiar with some of this stuff. Why, if Bishop Dwenger was the bishop of Fort Wayne, did they come to Lafayette? Well, they came because the Fort Wayne diocese went all the way down as far as Indianapolis. So Lafayette, Gary, all these South Bend, all these cities were in the Fort Wayne diocese. We still teach at St. Boniface. It's an old building, but we still teach there. This is the first St. Elizabeth's Hospital. Within 2 years of coming here, they had started a hospital. And that's really unique because in the United States at that time, you nursing and healthcare majors of all kinds, people didn't want to go to hospitals. That wasn't a nice thing. The hospitals were where you went to die. So there was a lot of opposition to going to hospitals. But they started this hospital with the help of local people. So that's kind of the beginnings of our community. Where did this university come from? Well, it started as St. Francis College, actually. That wasn't the name of it at first. These sisters who came to the United States and they were teaching at St. Boniface School, they were teaching students whose parents were German immigrants and they spoke German at home. So when they went into the classroom, they could teach the students in German, and that was fine. But as they began to get more English-speaking students, and as they began to need to know more about science and math and what they were teaching, they needed more education. So they started getting education on weekends in the summertime during vacation. We are very close to Purdue in Lafayette, so many of the Purdue professors were involved in helping to educate the sisters and other kind of educated people from the city of Lafayette. There we go. The curriculum began to grow. At that time, teachers needed only a 2-year education. If you're an education major now, you know you've got to do 4 years, and then you're going to have to do something after that. And in the late 19th century, you needed only 2 years of education. That was the norm for teachers. So teachers' colleges were called normal schools. So we have the origin of St. Francis Normal School in Lafayette. Now, we started teaching in 1875. We don't consider our founding date till 1890 because the classes in between were kind of helter-skelter. You know, they took classes from Purdue professors or other people on weekends and summer. Education was much less organized than it is today. But we consider our founding date 1890. That's kind of the time when things came together and they had a school. And it was only for sisters at that time, as were many universities in Indiana, St. Mary's at Notre Dame, St. Mary's in Terre Haute, Antioch College, I think Holy Cross. Many colleges of Catholic origin started educating only their own members, and at a time when they could open up to lay folks, they did so. So this is St. Francis Normal School, started in 1890, preparing sisters. It almost looks like it took very long to get approved by the Indiana State Department of Education, but actually the rules for us normal school didn't come out till 1922. So our sisters were in conversation with folks at the State Department of Education. They knew what the rules were going to be, and they adapted their curriculum so that they were ready in 1923 to be one of the first schools accredited by the State Department of Education for the education of teachers. And it's still a 2-year school. In 1937, rules are beginning to change. We became a 4-year institution. Then we became St. Francis College. And we're beginning to add other things. We're beginning to give degrees to our sisters who are studying nursing, mainly. So nursing, education, the 2 major things that we were involved in. And 2 major things we're involved in today. You saw that up here this morning. pardon me, this afternoon, the two people from the SNA from nursing and Dr. Dan Trelone from education are still not the only important programs, but two of the most important, and two that we began with. It's only in 1939 that they admitted lay women, no men, just women. And people from the surrounding area of Lafayette wanted to go to college. And they wanted to get the education that was being given at the St. Francis College, so they were accepted. They were kind of a minority, but they were a part of it. In 1940, we were chartered by the state of Indiana as a 4-year institution. By now, we're St. Francis College. Here's a picture of the early building. I think it still exists there. It was formerly the School of Nursing. I think it transferred over to the School of Nursing, and I think it's still there. This is kind of what Lafayette Complex looked like. That's where our sisters settled. They built a hospital, they built a college, they built a high school, they had a school of nursing, they had the headquarters for the community, and it was all on this big block. Now, this is a much earlier picture, so that would have been the situation about probably before before 1940. Okay, because by that time there are even things built up back here. Besides, they're not very ecologically correct. They got that black smokestack. It was just much too crowded. On that kind of space, you can't have a headquarters of a community, a hospital, a college, a high school, and a school of nursing, because everybody's crowding everybody out. So they began to start making moves. We moved to Fort Wayne in 1944. The Mother House had already moved to Mishawaka. If you're familiar with that area, our St. Francis Convent moved from Lafayette up to Mishawaka, Indiana, a place we call St. Francis Convent, or we call it the Mount when we talk about it. So that took a big chunk of folks out of that place in Lafayette. Then we moved here in 1944. The Bass Estate, what you see across the street, became available. First of all, it was offered to the diocese, and the bishop said, I don't want that place. And so people from Lafayette came up to look at it, and they said, that's a wonderful place. So the bishop came out here again, and he said, why didn't I buy it sooner? It's a beautiful place. And so we got what we had on the other side of the street, obviously not on this side at that time. So this is what the Bass Estate looked like before we bought it. This is a very early shot of the Bass Estate. This was Mr. Bass's summer home. When you go over and take a look at it today, when you're a chance to go over there, you'll see how beautiful it was. This is probably, as far as I can see, because this is that island, and here's where the causeway is now. So kind of from like Bonaventure. It's kind of looking at it from that direction. This is an aerial view of the property that we purchased. This was the whole St. Francis College back in 1944. It was very tight. The people who came here and lived here, students as well as faculty, they were shoulder to shoulder in everything that they did. And especially the sisters who lived and worked here, lived in very cramped quarters. They talk about anytime somebody wanted to get up and get seconds for dinner, they had to get 3 or 4 people to get out of the way. And, it was very close quarters for sleeping and for praying in their little chapel. Plus, much of Bass Mansion was devoted to, let's take a look at this picture first, and we'll come back to that. This is a picture, you can see the Bass Mansion, or what we call Brookside now here. You can see that there is no causeway. That was not built until about 1960, where Achatz, and we've got John Paul II, and Dormer, and the athletic fields, and Hutzel, and all that. It was cornfield, or woods, in 1944. Actually, I'll be honest about my age. When I came here as a student, there was no causeway, and there were cornfields over there. Okay, so I've seen a lot of growth in this place in the time that I've been around. I've been here as teacher and then registrar, and now I'm doing mission integration work. So I've taken a look at a number of things. We bought this. The sisters lived here, most of them. There were classrooms. It was the library. It was the president's office. It was the registrar's office and the dean's office. It did a lot. Here we have what we now have as the student center, which was formerly the servant quarters and stable for the Bass family. That was a physics lab and a biology lab and a chemistry lab, a reading lab over here, and a large classroom. So we had classroom space there. We obviously didn't have a student lounge. And there's the garage that's still there today, and the little children's quarters or playroom or whatever it was, or summer kitchen. People disagree on what it was. It's now the security shack, and so you walk there. Here's a driveway in front of Trinity, but there was no Trinity. Trinity Hall was built around 1949. By the way, on the opposite side of that picture, which you couldn't see, there were these two buildings. Now, this is if you were coming out of the east end of Trinity and facing Padua Hall. This was two outbuildings. Sometimes caretakers lived there. Some of the sisters lived here. For a time when we had an overflow of students, they lived in that little dingy building. It was kind of cute, but not much in the way of amenities. And we called it Padua Hall. And so when this was torn down, or was actually burned down by the fire department, they used it as a practice facility. Earlier in the 1990s, that was burnt down, and we built Padua Hall, probably in 2000, about 2004, I think, when Padua Hall was built. And so we got rid of those buildings, which were really in bad shape and not able to be redeemed. So that came with the property and was used for a long time. Here's one of the first lay students. This is a person who came from Lafayette, and she was a lay student in Lafayette, lived at home. She was a commuter, but she moved up here when the campus came here. Actually, this is, I think, a very pretty picture of a pretty woman. And she's playing the organ in what was the chapel, which would now be the drawing room when you get over into Brookside, if you haven't seen it before. The drawing room is on that side over here. And that served as their chapel. This person later joined our congregation, and she became Sister Joellen Sheets, who was president of St. Francis for a long time, until about 15 years ago. She's now retired and still alive. Here's an example of what Brookside was used for by students. This would be in the early 1950s. This is a dance that would be held in the Brookside Ballroom. It would be a lovely place to have a formal dance today, except it's kind of too small. But as small as the lay population was at that time, you can see the band shell back there and decorations and terribly formal garb. I'll show you another picture of dance later, but okay, here's another. The circular staircase, if you have Dr. Comfort for a teacher, that's an early picture of him with more hair and less weight. Here's a picture of Trinity Hall, and that empty space then, after we bought it, in 1949 they built Trinity Hall. It served a lot of things as a chapel, as it does today, in a different place. Dining room, more quarters for the sisters, at least have a decent bedroom. And many of the things it's changed, a lot of the areas changed over the years. But that was an important necessity. Before the college could become accredited, it had to have more space to do more, to teach more. And Trinity was part of the answer to that. Here's an example of a room you may or may not be able to identify. This is the area of the current chapel. If you've ever been in the current chapel, take a look at this. This was originally built as a gym, a very small gym. It was not regulation size for basketball. It was barely regulation size for volleyball. When we played volleyball in it, we didn't have to have boundaries. If it hit the wall, it was out of bounds. Anything inside was fair game for playing. So you volleyball players would have been a little frustrated. You couldn't run out to get a ball. You ran into the wall if you did. This is a picture of a graduation. My sister graduated during this time, shortly before that. She's older than I am. And when she graduated, I had to stay home because she could only get 2 tickets. As small as St. Francis was at that time, where the graduation had to be contained in that small area. Here's another picture of that same space. Here we go. This is the same space. The walls... These are walls that look like a gym. I didn't point out there's a place up here where people could see what was going on in the gym. And now that's the area where Residence Life, where Andy McKee has his office. That's been all enclosed, and we've made use of that space. So here's the graduation. Well, here's the part, man. I'm going too fast. Here's a dance that was held. They covered up all those tile walls. Took a lot of work. But now when the dances were getting larger, they had to move them out of Brookside and the ballroom upstairs, and they went over here. The place is still small. When I came here in the late 50s as a student, there were 200 and some students on this campus. Primarily, it was all women, but primarily lay women. Okay, there were some sisters, but very few. And look how terribly dressed they are. Here's an example of a social thing from the 1950s. I'm in this picture, but I don't know where, thank God. This is a picture, it was an all-women's school, and we had a sorority, but our sorority was really the social club for all of us, provided social activities. So kind of like the Student Activities Council would be today. And every year we had a very formal dinner downtown in one of the major hotels. The Keenan or the Van Orman, and they've both been torn down by this point. And we would be served by people, and we wore our best hats. And I don't see my hat anywhere. I'm in there. I can identify a lot of people. So I know it was 1959, given the people who were in that picture. Okay, next. Another simple ceremony. This is the bestowal of the freshman green beanie. You know, you had a big sister, somebody like the SNA was talking about mentors, somebody who helped you get acclimated to college and jump the hoops. And you wore a green beanie. In 1957, we achieved accreditation. We had to have Trinity Hall built, and then we got accreditation. From 1957 on, the college began to grow, hundreds every year. Okay. Without accreditation, your degree doesn't mean as much. And so we needed some space. Here we built a new biology lab. It was donated. It was a biology lab. It's now Building 6. Take a look at it. But at least it gave us space for some needs. Here's a cute little person with her gray, this is me, backside of my, I love that gray jacket. But anyway, and my blue tennis shoes with bobby socks. It's pretty gross. Here are there's a U.S. senator who came for the dedication. That building was built in one day. They laid the slab during the week. Indiana Tech guys came out because we didn't have any men. You notice the women working were all in skirts. We couldn't get permission to wear jeans that day. Things were different in the 50s, to say the least. If you know some of the sisters around here, that's Sister Marilyn and that's Sister Carol. They were both here in those days before we joined the congregation. And there I am again. I got a silly grin on my face. My roommate, a friend who's now living out east. I don't know who the guy is because he was from Tech. In 1959, we admitted males. Here, another kind of social difference. Take a look at the dress of these people. I'm guessing that this is probably an orientation day. First of all, you've got the great disparity between the number of men and the number of women. And everybody is so terribly dressed up. This guy's in a suit and ties. There are a couple of others. And of course, everybody's in skirts because we weren't allowed to wear slacks or jeans. In fact, even at this time in public schools, public high schools, they were not allowed to wear jeans. So it's just at the point of where things are beginning to change into the 60s. But we were not allowed to wear pants of any kind for class. This is after I left, after I joined the community. But you can see the great formality. You guys didn't show up for orientation looking this way. I saw you. Okay. We needed more space, so we added some room to the backside of Trinity Hall. That's not that important. Yep. In 1960, we began a master's program. And that was a time of great growth because we said we went from a 2-year normal school, because the state said you need 2 years. The state said you need 4 years, so we became St. Francis College with a 4-year education program. Now the state says you have to have a master's degree to continue teaching. So we started a master's program, and there was great demand because we were the only game in town. IPFW did not have it. Before I-69 was built, Ball State was a long way off on a hard drive. So we had a corner on the market, to say the least. Because of that, we built Bonaventure Hall in 1962. Bonaventure Hall was taken into John Paul II. You can see part of the former Bonaventure Hall here. In fact, I think that's where the name is on that curved structure. Now, this was all torn out when John Paul II was built. They gutted Bonaventure and more than doubled it. So you have that gorgeous and really helpful facility that's over there now. This is a large lecture hall, not very good because it was all flat, so you didn't see. We built a new residence hall in 1962. It's not a very clear picture, but I love the cars, give you an indication of the age of that building. So that was built in 1962. We had a tradition here, Little Le Mans. Indiana IU had the little 500s. We had the Little Le Mans, a bicycle race that went during the day. And then for those who couldn't do as well, we had tricycle races. You can't see really well. These are ugly striped pants. And I'm sure the guys thought they were the greatest thing on earth, and they're just terribly ugly. But you can't see them that well from here. Achatz was built in 1969. We think of it as a new building. It's going on 50 years old, 45 years old. And you can see this is an early building because they haven't even got the landscaping in. And they're going to put a great addition onto that with more up-to-date science labs. Here we have, if you have Dr. Hurley for class, that's Dr. Hurley with hair and dark hair. And he's got his trusty typewriter because nobody had computers in those days. This would be taken around 1970, 1971. Our peak enrollment was in 1969. At that time, because of the master's program, we had 2,326. Now, we surpassed that last year and this year. But I'm going to show you another number later to show you how much it fell after some of the programs began to change. We had other schools, IPFW and others, and I-69 got finished so people could travel down to Ball State. We didn't have a corner on the market for master's degrees in education. We added some new ones, one in business. Art programs increased. The 1970s were a hard time. The good part of it was more in lay involvement in the university's governance and organization. We have lay members added to the board of trustees when before that it was only sisters on the board. That's typical of most colleges that were run by religious communities, male or female. We changed that in the 70s. Faculty were more involved in governance. We started a mental health program. But we had a serious decline in the number of education majors. In our peak years, we would graduate 400 people with master's degrees in education. Now, it's a handful today, and we have other programs that have made up for that. But the 1970s were a very difficult time financially. If you lose all those students, you don't have as much money. One really high point of the 1970s, the Jesters. Started by Mr. Hal Gunderson. If you had anything going on in Gunderson Auditorium, it's named after him. He worked with a person named Bernie Solomon, a special education teacher, and together they formed the Jesters. If you don't know, they still go on today, and some of these young people who were involved at that time are still with the program, acting as, with the directors and melding scenes and doing lighting and whatever they can do. It really provided an outlet for those who were mentally challenged or physically challenged. And so they had very few outlets in their own high schools or grade schools. They had a place here, and they have continued to stay with that. This is the governor of the state, Robert Orr, who was presenting a citation. A number of times they had their presentations at the Embassy Theater, funded by the Knights of Columbus. And I love this picture because it shows how many people would attend that. And here's a couple of the cuter performers. I think the Jesters are a real gift that this community has given that this university has given to the community. And if you want to get involved in something, it's hard work, but it's very rewarding. And go to their performances and you cry because it's very charming and disarming. In the 1980s, we still had not much money. Didn't need to spend much time here, just need to get this thing to work. One high point, Bachelor of Science in Nursing, which brought a great deal of enrollment increase. But our enrollment in 1990, at the end of the 80s, was 971. From a high of 2,300, we're down to 900. So that tells you what some of the stresses we went through in the 70s and 80s. 90s, time of change. At that time, we began to get more interest in our own Franciscan understanding. In the 50s, when we came here in the 40s, we knew who we were as Franciscan and Catholic, and most of the students were Catholic. But as we began to grow, we began to lose some sense of that identity. And we have done some tremendous work to regain that identity. We had new programs geared to adults, Master of Science in Nursing, Master of Arts. We had a thing called the Weekend College. It doesn't exist anymore. It was accelerated courses on weekends. But we have some of the same format, so we learned something from that. We added Hutzel in 1990. 1998 was a very important year. It's the year we became University of St. Francis, because that's what we were. We had a large number of graduate programs within a large number of areas. And so, as many others did, we changed our name. It's the year we acquired, and these two are very independent of each other, we acquired the Lutheran College of Health Professions. They came to us during that year and said, we're for sale, they're bored. And so we acquired them. We immediately grew by 600 students. Now, it put a lot of stress on us, but at least we had 600 additional students in our classes. Football began. That had also been planned. Other sports have been added. One thing I didn't add here was when all the other sports, when we got men in 59, very shortly after that, we started soccer, which is our first intramural sport, men's soccer. Women started in the 1980s. But we have all kinds of other sports, baseball, softball, track, other things have started along the way. And we added Bishop Darcy Stadium in 1998. In the new millennium, we do greater planning, which resulted in 5 schools being developed. You can identify which school you're a part of. Is it a School of Arts and Sciences, School of Business, School of Creative Arts, large group, School of Professional Studies. Dr. Torlone was making an argument for that, and School of Health Sciences, which is one of our largest enrollments. It took some of the planning and stuff, moved it out to the schools, so things were not so centralized, and we could do better for our students. We acquired Lutheran College of Health Professions in '98. 2 years later, we were required to have a new building to house that, and we did. By 2000, we had the Dormer Center, which is a tremendous facility. We took the old Standard Oil building, cleaned it up. It was massively dirty with oil and ecological decay. And that was the Roland Art Center, and that's gotten awards because of that, of the way we transformed that building to an art center. New residence halls, Padua, which replaced that old white frame building. I don't know the year. John Paul Center, which took in Bonaventure Hall, but more than doubled it. We bought the North Campus in 2007. You're sitting in it right now. The first day we built it, we took the steeple off, making sure it was ours. If you want to see good pictures, views of campus, go out in front on a sunny day and see the lake and the campus. It's gorgeous. It's the best views. Clare Hall in 2009, further residence hall changes. We had Bonsall Hall completely renovated. That was built in 1962, so that's 50 years old. It needs renovation, to say the least, and that was done a couple of years ago. We had a hall called Bosco Hall. That ceased to exist. It was kind of a dump anyway, but I was kind of glad that went. And here's an aerial view. You can see we do own this territory over here. We have a sign there that says Shields Fields, but we haven't had a lot of money to do anything with it. Plus now we have some things downtown. Well, let's go to Crown Point first. We have a campus at Crown Point. If you're not familiar with where Crown Point is, here's a kind of small to see, but here's Fort Wayne, here's Crown Point. So you go up 30 and you drop down a little bit and you're at Crown Point. That's a building. It's a very simple building. We have fewer than 200 students there now. When we reach a critical mass, we are planning to build a rather large building for that program. And then our hospital, which is on the same grounds, will be able to use this. We bought the Scottish Rite. We'll put the music technology program down there eventually. And we bought the Chamber of Commerce just recently, and hopefully the business school. People are interested in being in the midst of the city, and the city wants us to be there. So it's a good mix. And that's our values, which you have been studying. Okay, I don't think we have much time, so any questions can come up during the next part. Thank you. Or catch me sometime for questions.